Pompallier Catholic College, a school built on the foundations of Christian values and a solid education. 50 years ago, in 1971, the school opened for the first time, welcoming first-year pupils, both boarders and day students.
The man who was supervising the construction of the building was Father Jack Maddox, who had been one of my teachers when I was a boy, but he'd had very wide experience in administration. And so the school was basically set up for what we would need, but we only started with 60 pupils, roughly half of whom were boarders and the rest were day pupils.
I started in 1972, which was the second year of the school, so we were second year boarders. We were third forms, only fourth former was ahead of us, so there's just the two classes. And there was 40 boarders, and it was always double the day boys, so there must have been 80 day boys.
The school lacked a lot of facilities of well-established schools because it was just starting, and we, like every school, they've just built as they've gone on. And the idea was we commenced with the third form, and the next year, when these people went to the fourth form, the roll doubled. And then the following year, the roll, not exactly double, but it would be, there would be about maybe 50 or 60 pupils were added, and that's how we got to where we were.
I do feel that, looking back, partly it was just a very new school, and there was a boarding house, so a lot of guys from farming areas. So it's sort of one of the cultural aspects of the school then was this sort of semi-rivalry between the boarders and the day boys, and I think there was a lot of, in any sort of situation with teenage males, there's a pretty high level of testosterone at the time.
And we'd come from virtually all the areas of Northland, and even in those days, kids used to board if they lived in Titoki, and later on, kids travelled daily from Dargaville, but we boarded and we had one free Sunday a month, a term, in the early days, and we didn't go home. That's how we became so close-knit. We made our own fun on the farm, and we didn't mingle much with the day boys. We all had our own insular group of boarders. So there was study every night before and after dinner in the normal disciplines. But yeah, it was certainly, as a 60-year-old, if you go back to your happy space, it was a happy time boarding at the school.
It was a challenging time. And I was rather inexperienced, but at the same time we weren't, as it were, hampered by the past, and we did a few things that perhaps were not done in some other schools. For instance, in the boarding school, we always, the staff, the priests who were here, Father Bennett, David Tapp and myself, and then there was a farm as part of the complex, and this was run by some of our brothers. And we always ate the evening meal with the boys. Probably, I think on reflection, wasn't a bad idea actually. I think it was a more civilised way of eating, especially young people on their own can get a bit wild. Later on, and this was after my time as rector, it was decided for very good reasons to close the boarding school. But as you can see these days, there's certainly more than enough pupils just from the Whangarei area and the wider area who can get here by public transport of some means or other.
You can come and see the students work. But even the boys here, this is options. They don't have to take care of this.
You must see this.
Okay. Come on, Shweta.
Go. Yes, it's good.
I was appointed principal in 2003, and I left my previous school where I had been a principal for 8 years to come here. I hadn't worked in a Catholic or a Christian school before, So that was a new aspect to school leadership for me. The boards of trustees were really, really supportive that I worked with, and I've got a lot of time for boards of trustees and in Catholic schools for the bishops or the proprietors' representatives, as they are called.
I came here in the beginning of the third term in 2009, so around about July. I've been the principal at Pompallier from that point through to today, which is 2021, and it's coming up to must be about 12 years, I think now.
School principals are always anxious about the school role. This school has a maximum allowable roll of 650, unless the rules have changed. So during the years that I was here, the roll would be comfortably over 500.
Our school roll at the moment is just over 600 students, and it's very close to being an equal number of boys and girls. The actual figures are, I think there's about 30 more boys in the school than there are girls.
If you become the principal of a Catholic school, you are joining a charism. So, and that charism is to be encouraged amongst the students. In fact, the Board of Trustees, when I arrived, was going through the process of doing a very thorough review of the school charter, its mission, curriculum delivery, so it was quite vast. The school, so the board in those days, and very likely still, but was very focused on that this school stood for growing young people, or helping young people to grow, to be good citizens, good Christians, Catholics, and good scholars. So it's a really balanced. So and none of that was like academic. Like a good scholar didn't mean you had to go to university. It really meant making the best of whatever gifts and attributes you had. So then, and what opportunities and what courses can the school offer that will help you in those directions?
I think there's a few things in it. The easiest thing I think about being a principal is just the administrative work. Most of that, any person can do it. But I think that the big things in the role of a principal is trying to influence the culture of the school. In our context, the special character of the school, and to make sure that aligns with the best aspects or best practice of Catholicism and Christianity. To me, that's the biggest challenge, and I think I've always got to keep that to the forefront of my thinking.
Working with the people, you can never do it on your own, working with the people here to get an environment that helped do those things for the young people who are here with us and their families.
From the 4th of June to the 6th, 2021, the 50th Jubilee celebrations commenced, where past students, staff and families gathered to celebrate the life of the school.
The way the school has gone, from my point of view, I just think is wonderful. And I think one of the great consolations of these days here is the fact that I've been able to meet some people I haven't met for 50 years. Quite a number said to me they didn't bother about the 25th Jubilee that I attended, but they've certainly been here for this, and they've come in great numbers. They have to tell me who they are, because if they've got #1 haircut and a beard and said, "Father Wysocki, you remember me?" Well, I wouldn't have a clue. I saw them when I was 16 or 17.
It made me feel like I was part of something more than just what I see every day. You know, like just seeing everyone, and they pointed at things and like noticed things that were different. Like, that was kind of cool, because the school how it is pretty much how I've known it.
Oh, I think it sort of makes me sort of have a sense of, life coming full circle in a way, arcing back to where I sort of started out, and that's a good thing, because I haven't actually stepped into the school property for about 40 years, and I live away from Whangarei, only really come up this way, so Yeah, sort of a sense of coming back to a sort of a space that was very influential in my life, really. And you know, I was you know, made some good friends here, some good times.
Everything's just evolved, and it's just so interesting to see how it all started, and it's just how much Pompallier as a school has grown and how different things are, like the uniforms, the way they did things, the practices, the culture back then. It's completely different to what it is now.
But it is interesting that they all you know, came here and had the same like formative experiences, or had their formative experiences in the same place with the same kind of vibe and atmosphere and aesthetic that I did, you know. And they're of a completely, you know, so a lot of them, not all of them, are of a completely different time, generation, and lifestyle.
Back in the early 70s, there was certainly no emphasis on the Maori language. It was all French and Latin was the only languages that were available at school. And there were the Catholic Maori boys, there was no hint of any inferiority, superiority. We were all just, but there was no Maori culture within the school. It was just straight New Zealand at the time, you know, so that's quite a change. Now to see, you know, and Mass today, well, if I hadn't come to Mass today, I go to Mass at Kaihu on a first Sunday of the month, because that's all in Maori. I love the singing and the liturgy of the Maori Mass.
The waiata, the haka, they became very part of school life.
It feels like a much more established school now, and maybe in a way, you know, just more deeply valued bicultural traditions. You know, just having that mihi whakatau earlier, and you know, I can only presume what life is like on a day-to-day basis at the school. But if that's any reflection, well, then that's great, because you know, it was just the times in the 70s that there wasn't such an embrace of tikanga and te reo and whatever. So you know, and Northland being what it is, it's really important to you know, be immersed in that side of our you know, heritage as a nation.
I think the introduction of the Year 13 hikoi and clearer connections back into Northland via that process.
Yeah.
The more recent connection back with Te Parafo, which is where the school's whakapapa works back to, because at that time, way back in the 1840s, Te Raro gave land to Bishop Pompallier, which essentially sent forth a train leading through to today in terms of the development of this college. So I think reconnecting with that is another very important thing.
Being at Pompallier has helped me find roots, I guess, because like I don't come from a Catholic family, so being surrounded by this sort of stuff all day has really helped me, it's helped me felt grounded, because it's connected me to God, and as a person I've grown because I've been able to see different cultures.
Well, I think it was very important to sort of socialize, have an environment where you can socialize a lot, because I found it like incredibly hard, especially in the first year of uni, like just last year, to like actually make friends, to socialize, to ingratiate myself into like friend groups and stuff. Like, it's actually pretty difficult if you're not going with people who like you've known for years, which I wasn't. But I was still eventually able to like make connections and like, you know, build friendships with people because of like the socialization that had happened like at high school, whatever.
My experience here just helped me build more upon my morals and values that I've been taught and all the practices that I need to do. I know it's just, I guess it's made me feel better about what I need to do later on in my life, and that to, you know, have good friends here, to have such a wonderful experience at Pompallier. It's just really cool to see a lot of other people kind of like-minded and that have similar values, similar morals.
We are a school based on Christian values and Marist charism, and that's one thing which we never want to lose.
The things that I remember most about being here is the energy, the enthusiasm, the creativity of the students collectively, with the support of a lot of really, really talented and committed teachers. I really do, you know, think that those are the things that help the school work as well as it does.
I think educationally we had an English teacher who actually wasn't a priest, and we studied animal farm in the third form, and the fourth forms had 1984, and Julius Caesar we had, and they had Macbeth. Like, the education was such a good education. We had the availability of such a good, well-rounded education. Whether we took advantage of it or not, that was up to us, but the discipline and the education was there available to all of us, as well as the spiritual side of the faith was available to us. And you know, whether we made full advantage of it, you know, it had taken us 30 years to get our act together, but some of us came back, so that's good.
The other thing which I think I'm probably also very proud of is the change in the academic outcomes in the school. First couple of years here, we used to sit sort of around the middle in terms of academic outcomes. And I always recall one of the other principals used to bring along an analysis of all the schools to principals' meetings, and he would show the results of various schools. It was after a couple of years he stopped doing that, and that was because our students and our staff moved from being in the middle to being right at the top, and I think we've been there, well, I don't think, I know we've been there ever since. And so I'm very proud of that. I think the attitude of the students changed, and they had a far better desire to do well academically, whereas before it was a little bit like common Northland attitude many times, that good enough is sufficient. And I think we've moved from that now to try and make sure that we're working at those top outcomes and not just settling for good enough will do.
But I think everyone needs a basic education, and that's why places like Pompallier College exist. You know, some boys will say, well, I don't need to go to school, I'd like to play rugby, and that's all there is to it. But you find rugby players these days who've got to the top and realise they've got to have something else. Just to be able to play rugby and get a contract, and even to be an All Black, is not enough. What else? And especially when they retire, if they haven't got interests and talents that they've fostered, they can find life a terrible bore. So that was my idea. How far did I attain it? Well, I think I attained it in some limited way, and I would not be the person to pass judgment on how well or how poorly I did. But others do and others will, and that's fair enough, and so they should.
But tonight's my night to give back. Tonight is your night to give back. Tonight is your night to pay it back. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is the night we raise for the college, we fundraise for the college, we pay it back.
The 50th Jubilee was a time to focus on the school's past, a chance to look back 50 years to see how the school was shaped, and now an opportunity to ponder where the school will be in another 50 years.
But I think there's some things about education that don't change, and a key one of that is relationships. I would hope that in 50 years from now, there's still really good relationships between the teachers and the students. The other things in terms of the content of the curriculum, all of that will change. The way it's delivered will change. There'll be more study being done out of school and in school. Those sorts of combinations will be very common. Far greater use of online learning than what we do today. So I see that as just an evolving face of education.
But the fact of the matter is that people have talents in other ways. I mean, sometimes people have a talent just that they can get on with people and they can talk to people and put people at their ease, things of that nature. They're talents. And I was talking to a fellow today actually, and he just said to me, you know, I never realised what I could do until I'd left school.
I'm not going to have this role for 5 years, it's just for one, so I guess just how I can make an impact on those younger students to kind of better themselves, to like, oh yeah, that guy was really cool, he helped me do this, or like he was a role model for me. Like, I want to be remembered as a person that, you know, built good relationships. I wasn't, you know, someone that was fake or anything. I just want to be remembered as a good person.
I'd say keep your relationships and friendships, and particularly with teachers or parents or friends that have been good support to you. Don't lose them when you go out into the wide world. Come back and see them and keep contact with them, and they'll be sources of strength and wisdom for you for your futures.
It's just being able to show others that it's possible, that they can do whatever they want to do, no matter where they stand in life. And I just want to be able to, like, inspire people so that they feel like, even if it's like a far-fetched dream, that they feel like they can actually still have a go at it. Grasp
all the opportunities that are presented to you, but at the same time don't grasp so many opportunities that you lose touch with the essentials, because clearly the fundamental purpose of a school is around sort of learning and formal education, so you get some credentials for going out into the world, so to speak, but at the same time I think it's important that that isn't the solitary focus, because when you do sort of move from here to whatever else you're doing, you need social skills and you need to be able to, you know, have a broader range of ways of relating to people in the world. So I mean, I think that probably the opportunities within a school like this are much greater than they were when the school I knew here, when I started out as a third former, there was only fourth formers above us, and it just sort of grew at the time, and it was very much a time of I suppose bedding down what Pompallier was at the time. The priests, the marists were sort of, you know, doing what they could to establish a school, and I just get the sense coming back here that this is a much more, you know, well-established school that has its traditions over the last 50 years and is well respected.
Another 50 years, I'm hoping that staff and students will still say that they're proud to be a marist school.